crockery nights like every other night.
No, not tonight.
What's different?
I don't know. Something in the way my heart beats. As if something very good were going to come out of tonight.
They were Hollywood's most explosive couple, Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner. Their love was fierce, their fights even fiercer. But everything changed in November 1952. Ava said something that shattered their world. After secretly ending her pregnancy, she told him the truth. When Frank found out, he fell apart. He struggled deeply with the news. Yet, even after their divorce, he sent her flowers every year. But those words built a wall between them, one neither could climb. Ava Gardner was born on Christmas Eve, 1922, in a tiny North Carolina town called Grabtown. She was the youngest of 7, born when her father Jonas was 44 and her mother Molly 39. Though not wealthy, they were comfortable by local standards. Jonas owned a tobacco and cotton farm, a sawmill, and even a country store. Their house was one of the biggest around, yet it had no electricity, no running water, no indoor plumbing. Ava grew up deeply rooted in the Baptist church. Her father helped build it, donating timber and labor. As a barefoot child, she roamed the farm fields, working tobacco alongside her father late into the night. Her only pair of shoes was saved for special occasions. That barefoot freedom stayed with her forever. Even in Hollywood, the feel of warm dirt under her feet gave her peace. But life wasn't easy. When the boll weevil destroyed their crops, the family lost everything and became tenant farmers on land they once owned. School was no refuge either. Ava wore hand-me-downs and endured teasing. Then came a cruel blow. In 1934, at 11, the school where her mother worked closed down. The family moved to Virginia and opened a boarding house, but her father fell ill. After school each day, Ava visited him at Riverside Hospital. She read him the news, especially stories about President Roosevelt. Jonas never complained, but his health worsened. On March 26, 1938, he passed away from bronchitis. Ava was just 15. The loss crushed her. She didn't fully understand the depth of her grief until years later. Once, she wept at Grace Kelly's wedding just watching a father walk his daughter down the aisle. "If only I had a father like that to lean on," she whispered. After the funeral, Ava and her mother moved back to North Carolina. Molly ran another boarding house, and Ava focused on her future. In 1939, she graduated high school and enrolled at Atlantic Christian College. She studied typing, shorthand, and business writing, aiming to become a secretary. A practical path for a poor girl with no Hollywood connections. Acting was never on her radar. She had no training, no stage experience, and a thick southern drawl no one outside North Carolina could understand. But everything changed during a summer visit to New York City in 1940. She went to see her older sister, Bappy. Bappy's husband, Larry Tarr, was a professional photographer. He took portraits of Ava to send back to their mother. One photo, capturing Ava's quiet, striking beauty, ended up in his studio window on Fifth Avenue. A young legal clerk from Loews Theaters noticed it and joked someone should send her details to MGM. Larry did just that. He stayed up all night making prints and mailed them to MGM's New York office. The studio was stunned. MGM invited Ava for a screen test. It wasn't really an audition. She simply walked, turned, and arranged flowers. They didn't even record her voice. Her southern drawl was too thick to understand. Yet when studio boss Louis B. Mayer saw the footage, he declared, "She can't sing. She can't act. She can't talk. She's terrific." MGM signed her for $50 a week. That's about $985 today. On August 23, 1941, 18-year-old Ava arrived in Hollywood, chaperoned by her sister. She had one cardboard suitcase, one pair of shoes, and zero experience. Her contract had a clause letting MGM adjust her pay to $35 a week for up to 12 weeks annually. Studio exec George Sidney called her a good piece of merchandise. That's exactly how they saw her. Between 1942 and 1945, Ava appeared in 17 movies. Most roles were small and forgettable. Sometimes she had one line, sometimes none. She played party girls, dancers, socialites, and background extras. She later said, "I was wallpaper." Meanwhile, MGM pushed endless photo shoots. They dressed her in glamorous outfits and sent pictures overseas to boost troupe morale. Ava was famous for her face, not her talent. Behind the scenes, MGM tried to mold her. They gave her speech lessons to soften her accent, coached her on how to sit, stand, smile, and walk like a refined lady. Stylists fussed endlessly over her hair and makeup. Ava hated it. Nervous in front of the camera, she sometimes took a drink to calm her nerves. Real acting lessons were rare. Only actor Charles Lawton ever took the time to truly help her. Gregory Peck once suggested she try stage acting, but MGM said no. They wanted her to play leading ladies, even though she wasn't ready. Then came her first real chance. In 1946, Ava starred in Whistle Stop, a noir film about a woman returning to her hometown and caught in a love triangle. George Raft played her love interest and recommended her for the role. Critics still noticed her inexperience, but she showed real promise. The movie received decent reviews. For Ava, it was a breakthrough. Someone finally saw her as more than just a pretty face. One of those people was producer Mark Hellinger. He watched Whistle Stop and immediately wanted her for his next project, The Killers, based on a short story by Ernest Hemingway. Universal paid MGM $1,000 a week just to borrow her for 7 weeks. Ava herself was making only $200 a month. That's how much she was undervalued. The Killers premiered on August 28, 1946. On its first day, it earned $10,341 at one theater, $3,000 more than any film had made there before. It was a sensation, earning 4 Oscar nominations and making Ava a star. Her role as Kitty Collins, the seductive and mysterious woman at the film's heart, defined her screen image for years. Even Hemingway loved it. He kept a copy at home and showed it to guests, saying Ava captured exactly what he had imagined. A woman who was sexy, yet sad, dangerous, yet soft. He even pushed for her to be cast in more adaptations of his work. Still, MGM kept her on a short leash. When Gregory Peck invited her to join a stage production, MGM blocked it, simply because it wasn't a lead role. That kind of control made it hard for her to grow. But Ava found ways around it. In the 1950s, she took on bold, diverse roles, playing mythical figures, duchesses, noble women. She wanted people to see her range. Even in The Barefoot Contessa, where she played a glamorous dancer turned movie star, Ava insisted on adding layers of pain and ambition beneath the glitter. A major turning point came in 1953 with Mogambo. Director John Ford didn't want her at first. He had Maureen O'Hara in mind. Ford was tough, and Ava called him the meanest man she ever met. Things got so tense during filming in Kenya that Clark Gable briefly walked off set after witnessing a heated clash between them. But by the end, she had grown to admire Ford. And despite the chaos, Mogambo became a major success. It cost $3.1 million to make and earned $8.3 million. More importantly, it earned Ava her first Oscar nomination. Critics praised her charm and depth, and she nearly won the New York Film Critics Award. She lost the Academy Award to Audrey Hepburn, but it didn't matter. She had finally proved herself. Off camera, Ava and Grace Kelly became close during the shoot. They shared quiet moments together, like sipping bootleg champagne in a tent in the middle of Africa. After that, no matter where Ava was, a birthday gift from Grace would always arrive. Then came The Barefoot Contessa in 1954. Filmed in Rome and across Italy, it made her an international icon. MGM loaned her out for $200,000 plus 10% of the film's gross over $1 million. The studio made $1 million from the deal. Ava got $60,000. The film turned her into the world's most beautiful animal, a title she hated but couldn't escape. She played Maria Vargas, a dancer-turned-star inspired by Rita Hayworth. The film's moody, mysterious tone didn't always sit well with critics. Co-star Humphrey Bogart didn't enjoy working with her, saying she gave him nothing to work with and that he flubbed lines to force retakes. But Ava knew the truth. This was her movie, not his. Despite the tension, Contessa had its fans. French filmmaker François Truffaut praised it, and Fellini drew inspiration from it for La Dolce Vita. Ava's sultry yet broken performance became the blueprint for a new kind of female-led. Glamorous, yes, but also aching, real, and human. 2 years later, in 1956, she took on Bhawani Junction with director George Cukor. This time, she wasn't just a beauty queen or glamorous starlet. She was Victoria Jones, an Anglo-Indian woman caught between cultures, love, and war. The film had a massive $3.6 million budget and was partly shot in Lahore, Pakistan. Conditions were brutal, hot, chaotic, and emotionally draining. But the role pushed her deeper than anything before. She admitted this was one of the few parts she truly connected with. Cukor saw something others missed. He later wrote to her, "No matter how often I rerun this bit or that, I'm never bored. The more I see it, the more depth I find." Critics agreed. Newsweek called her surprisingly effective. The New York Times praised her intense emotional range. Cukor described her as complicated, intelligent, fatalistic, desperate, but magnetic. He called her a creature of great fascination. And in one moment that stuck with her forever, he paid her the ultimate compliment: "Ava is a gentleman." Meanwhile, Ava Gardner was falling in love with different men all along. It all began in 1941. Ava had just arrived in Hollywood when she met Mickey Rooney, the biggest star in America at the time. On her second day at MGM, she saw him dressed like Carmen Miranda for a movie. He was short, she was tall, he was 21, making $5,000 a week, over $90,000 in today's money, and he was smitten. He called her every night for 2 weeks. She only agreed to dinner if her sister could come along. But he wasn't subtle. Mickey was loud, funny, and always performing. He sent gifts. He showed up everywhere. Eventually, he gave her a 6-carat diamond ring. People whispered that America's favorite boy next door was determined to marry this new, shy beauty. And he meant it. He told friends, "I'll marry her no matter what." Ava was 19. She'd grown up in rural North Carolina. She was a virgin, and she didn't care about fame. Mickey wanted everything right away. But MGM didn't like the idea. Their golden boy getting married risked hurting ticket sales, so studio boss Louis B. Mayer allowed the wedding only if it was quiet. On January 10, 1942, Ava Gardner married Mickey Rooney in a small California church. She wore a blue suit with orchids, no white dress or dream wedding. MGM later staged fake photos to make the marriage look perfect, but trouble started immediately. Mickey left the next morning to play golf, drank heavily, chased women, gambled, and showed little interest in being a husband. Overwhelmed and just a teenager, Ava filed for divorce after 7 months, citing mental cruelty. The divorce was finalized on May 21, 1943, the same day Ava's mother died of breast cancer. That same year, Howard Hughes, wealthy but unstable, entered her life. He pursued her obsessively. They fought often, including one violent incident where she smashed an ashtray on his head. MGM helped her escape, but Hughes kept chasing her for 20 years. In 1945, Ava married bandleader Artie Shaw, who initially praised her but then tried to change her completely, mocking her tastes and pushing her to study subjects like politics and psychology. Feeling belittled, Ava took an IQ test and scored high, but the marriage still failed. They divorced after 1 year and 1 day. Afterward, Ava embraced a wild Hollywood lifestyle, heavy drinking, smoking, and partying. She was notorious for scandalous behavior, including urinating in a hotel lobby and dragging Grace Kelly into a brothel for fun. MGM struggled to control her image, but she spiraled deeper into alcohol and depression, believing she didn't deserve love. Between Shaw and Sinatra, Ava had an affair with married actor Robert Mitchum. When she started seeing Frank Sinatra seriously, Mitchum warned her, "That guy's dangerous," but she ignored him. Ava and Frank first met in 1943 at a nightclub when both were married. Sinatra was 27 and famous, but his career later struggled. By 1949, Ava was 26 and their affair began. Sinatra was obsessed. He even recorded a private demo for her. But Frank was still married with 3 children. On Valentine's Day, 1950, Sinatra told his wife Nancy he wanted a divorce, shocking many since divorce was rare and stigmatized in Catholic circles. Ava insisted Frank confront Nancy directly. Though Nancy tried to save the marriage, public pressure and scandal forced the divorce, finalized in October 1951. Just 72 hours later, on November 7th, Sinatra married Ava Gardner. She wore a mauve cocktail dress and carried camellias and carnations. Only a few family members were there. They tried to escape the photographers, but they couldn't hide. Their love was everyone's business now. But it wasn't equal. In 1949, Ava was a star. Sinatra was struggling. He'd lost much of his earlier success. Columbia Records dropped him. His agent left. His TV show was cancelled. Even MGM let him go. It crushed him that Ava was the one making money while he was fading. His pride took hit after hit. Ironically, it was Ava who helped him make a comeback. She encouraged him to take the role of Maggio in From Here to Eternity. It brought him back to life. He won the Oscar, but it didn't fix their relationship. Ava once said it wasn't work that made him jealous. It was each other. Their scandal was a media circus. Ava got hate mail. People called her a homewrecker. Letters poured in, full of cruel words. Sinatra's fans turned on him, especially the women. They had loved his family man image. And now they saw him as the guy who left his wife and kids for a starlet. Even the church condemned him. The press tore them apart, and the industry followed. By 1952, Sinatra had no recording deal, no films, and no fans left. But they didn't care. They got married anyway. She was 28, he was 35, and 10 days later, they were in Nairobi, Kenya, celebrating their first anniversary during a flight. Ava was filming Magambo there. She wore pearls and a blue travel suit. They tried to look like a normal couple, but nothing about them was normal. They were both fiery, jealous, and drawn to chaos. Drinking was constant. Gardner once said they'd down 3 or 4 big martinis every night, then move on to wine and hard liquor. Their fights were public, intense, and often ended in broken glass or broken promises. Things truly fell apart after Gardner had her second abortion in November 1952. This one hit harder, not just because Sinatra didn't know about it at the time, but because of what she reportedly said afterward. In London, recovering from the procedure, she was overheard saying something that would become one of the most difficult moments in their relationship. "I hated Frankie so much. I wanted that baby to go unborn." The words came from a vulnerable moment, but they were harsh. They weren't about fear or timing or career. They were about deep pain. When those words eventually reached Sinatra through Hollywood's gossip channels, they devastated him. The marriage had already been in trouble, but this turned heartbreak into something darker. Friends say Sinatra was deeply hurt when he first found out about the abortion. Just 3 weeks after their public separation, on October 29, 1953, Sinatra attempted to take his own life. He was found in an elevator in his Manhattan apartment building, wrists injured. It wasn't the first time. Earlier that year, after seeing Gardner in Africa and learning about her relationship with Spanish bullfighter Luis Miguel Dominguez, he had also tried to end his life. That time, he imagined her green eyes watching over him in the hospital, but she never came. Sinatra's depression ran deep. He once called himself an 18-carat manic depressive. After arguments with Ava, he'd swallow sleeping pills or try to cope in dangerous ways. The November 1953 attempt was his worst. His friend Jimmy Van Hoosen found him just in time. Sinatra survived, but barely. And all the while, Ava was drifting further away. After filming Magambo in Africa, instead of going back to Sinatra, she flew straight to Spain. There, she began a highly publicized relationship with Dominguez, Spain's most famous matador. In June 1954, she filed for divorce while still married to Frank and still seeing Luis Miguel. The press had a field day. Sinatra, already struggling, was now publicly humiliated. Spain wasn't just a fling for Ava. It became her escape. She had first visited in 1950, but after her marriage collapsed, she moved there for good in 1955. The country gave her freedom and passion. She fell in love with the flamenco music, the bullfights, and the late-night energy. In Spain, she could go barefoot, just like she did in The Barefoot Contessa, a role that eerily mirrored her real life. Her relationship with Dominguez only added fuel to the media frenzy. While Frank was rebuilding his career with From Here to Eternity, Ava was building a new life, one that had nothing to do with Hollywood or him. But despite everything, the divorce wasn't finalized until July 1957. For 3 years, they were locked in a strange limbo. Gardner lived with Dominguez, Sinatra kept working, and even after the papers were signed, they stayed connected in ways neither could explain for nearly 20 years. Sinatra managed Ava's finances like a man still married. As late as 1976 to 19 years after their split, he was still overseeing her money, not just the big stuff but everyday matters. Ava never asked for help. She earned well after leaving MGM in 1958, but Frank couldn't let go. It wasn't about the money. It was about her. In the 1980s, Ava's health began to decline. That's when Frank stepped in again. She had the money to handle it herself, but he insisted on helping. He paid $50,000 to fly her from London to Los Angeles to see a top medical specialist. At first, Ava said no. She was proud, but Frank wouldn't take no. He paid for a medically equipped private jet. He just wanted to make sure she got the best care. By 1986, she had suffered a stroke. Half her body was paralyzed. She needed oxygen to breathe. Through all this, Frank stayed close, quietly but fully. People around them could still see what they had. Ava once called Frank the love of my life, and Frank never stopped saying he loved her every day. During their relationship, he sent her telegrams even when they were on opposite sides of the world. She found those telegrams years later. They filled an entire suitcase. He married others, so did she, but the tie between them never broke. Even in the 1960s, while married to MIA Farrow, Frank called Ava to say she would always be his only real love. In 1965, while filming in Rome, he invited her to his villa. Friends said he was trying to win her back. Ava never stopped holding on to those moments. She kept a photo of the two of them beside her bed until the day she died. And every year after the divorce, Frank sent flowers, always. In 1968, Ava moved from Spain to London. She was facing tax problems and wanted a quiet life. She bought an apartment in Knightsbridge, number 34 Andover Gardens. She filled it with Asian decor and carved out a peaceful space far from Hollywood. Her assistant called it cozy, with big chests, screens, and soft chairs by the fire. Ava didn't go out much. She liked staying home with her corgis, eating dinner made by her housekeeper, Carmen. When she did step out, it was for ballet, theater, or a quiet drink at the Ennismore Arms. After her stroke in 1986, she avoided most phone calls, but not Frank's. When he called, nurses held the phone to her ear. He did all the talking. He'd tell her he loved her, that growing old was difficult. Even when she couldn't answer back, he kept calling. In May 1985, Ava flew back to the United States for what would be the last time. Then, on January 25, 1990, she died in her sleep at age 67. The cause was bronchial pneumonia. Her last words were, "I'm tired." 4 days later, over 300 people gathered in Smithfield, North Carolina. It was cold and drizzling as they laid her to rest beside her family, as she had asked. Her grave was marked with a simple footstone. Frank didn't attend, but he sent a wreath. The card simply said, Francis, that's what she had always called him. Some said the flowers were yellow roses, her favorite. Others said they were pink. It didn't matter what. What mattered was that he remembered her. Her sister Myra cried through the entire ceremony. Beatrice, the other sister, was too ill to come. She passed 3 years later. A local reverend gave the eulogy. He said Ava wasn't a saint, but she was real. She loved her roots. She never pretended to be anything else. Ava's estate went to her sisters, just like she planned. In 1986, when they were gone, the rest would go to charity, places like St. Jude's Hospital and the Ava Gardner Museum. Her story ended far from Hollywood, but it had started even farther away, in the tobacco fields of North Carolina.